The roar of a powerful engine cuts through the silence as we step into a world where British racing heritage meets modern engineering. Imagine a time when a bold new sports car aimed to challenge the norm. A car with a compact 2.0-liter V10 engine set at a unique 22.5 degrees angle that promised both speed and fuel efficiency. The Connaught Type D carries the legacy of a racing past when Connaught engineering earned a place in British motorsport history. In 1955, Tony Brooks won a Grand Prix at Syracuse, marking the first victory by a British car with a British driver since the pre-war era. That historic moment lifted the Connaught name, known for building race cars for Formula One and Formula Two. In later years, the Connaught Motor Company was formed in 2004 by Tim Bishop and Tony Martindale. They were determined to create a sports car that would honor the past while using new ideas to push performance and efficiency. Their vision was to build a sports car that mixed high performance with an eco-friendly approach. The design of the Type D was simple yet thoughtful. The car featured a steel-reinforced tubular space frame covered with aluminum body panels, which kept it light and strong. With a 2+2 coupe body style, it offered 2 front seats and 2 smaller rear seats. The lightweight design meant that the car weighed about 2,094 pounds. Every part was chosen to keep the weight down and the performance up. At the heart of the car was its unique engine. The 2.0-liter V10 was set at a narrow 22.5 degrees angle, a design similar to that found in Volkswagen VR6 engines. This allowed the engine to use a single cylinder head instead of 2. It was supercharged, giving it a boost that produced roughly 300 horsepower at high speeds. The engine delivered a flat torque curve with around 144 pound-feet of torque available from 1,000 revolutions per minute to 6,000 revolutions per minute. The design was efficient, and its compact nature helped keep the overall weight low, which was crucial for performance. The power was managed through a 5-speed manual transmission, allowing skilled drivers to shift with precision. The Type D also aimed to introduce a hybrid system. The idea was to pair the petrol engine with an electric motor to assist with torque and fuel economy. The electric motor, attached to the front of the engine, could provide extra power when needed. The hybrid system, later known as Hybrid, offered 3 different modes: Sport, Normal, and Economy. In Sport mode, the motor provided maximum assistance, while Normal mode balanced power and recharging through regenerative braking. Economy mode focused on saving fuel. This system was innovative for its time, promising a blend of performance and efficiency that was unusual in sports cars. The design of the Type D was not just about power. The suspension system used double wishbones with adjustable coil springs over shock absorbers and anti-roll bars. This setup helped the car handle curves and bumps with a smooth ride. The chassis was designed to collapse progressively in a crash, ensuring that it could be repaired easily and provide safety for the driver and passengers. With precise engineering, the car was built to meet high safety standards, with plans to score highly in crash tests and pedestrian safety ratings. The Type D was first shown to the public at the Goodwood Revival Meeting, a renowned event in England where classic and modern cars are celebrated. The reveal drew attention from car enthusiasts and experts alike. The project received funding from the Energy Saving Trust and support from the British government, which saw potential in a car that combined high performance with low emissions. Although the original plan was to create a hybrid sports car, the prototype that was built did not include the full hybrid drivetrain. Instead, a more conventional version known as the Type D GT Syracuse Edition was introduced first. This version was seen as a stepping stone to further develop the hybrid system. The Type D GT Syracuse Edition was a tribute to the racing victory of 1955 at Syracuse. It featured a supercharged 2.0-liter V10 engine that delivered 300 horsepower. With a curb weight of about 2,094 pounds and a body length of approximately 167.4 inches, the car was designed for both performance and everyday practicality. It offered a 2+2 seating layout and was built on a composite and stainless steel structure. The car's design focused on balance and proper weight distribution, with the engine mounted in a front mid position. The drive was sent to the rear wheels, ensuring a sporty feel and responsive handling. Despite the promising design and innovative ideas, the project faced financial challenges. The initial plan for the Type D was to be built at a price of around £35,000, but this later increased to about £45,000. The economic difficulties, especially during the financial crisis of 2008, meant that the investment needed to bring the car into mass production never fully materialized. Additional funds from the Welsh government were expected after the company set up a facility in South Wales, but these too were not enough to overcome the financial hurdles. The company tried to relaunch in 2014, but eventually it was dissolved in 2016. Even with the setback, the Connaught Type D left its mark. The car showed that a sports car could be built with modern hybrid ideas and still pay respect to its racing heritage. It demonstrated that a compact engine, when designed well, could deliver high power and efficiency. The project also set the stage for future plans. In 2020, Bevan Davidson International, a Welsh engineering firm, acquired the Connaught brand. They looked into reviving the legacy by planning to build some of the original unsold Type D vehicles, followed by an updated design. One concept that came out of this revival was the Connaught Villiers X20, a supercar idea that combined two V10 engines to create a V20 engine, aiming to offer even more power. Plans also included a new model known as the Connaught Speedster, which would carry on the spirit of the original Type D with updated technology. Throughout its development, the Type D project included the hard work of many people. Tim Bishop and Tony Martindale, both former Jaguar engineers, led the design and engineering efforts. Their vision was to combine the past and the future, a nod to Tony Brooks's Syracuse win, and a step toward modern hybrid technology. The car was built with the help of Derby-based partner EPM Technology and styling input from Coventry University. Their collaboration aimed to deliver a car that was balanced, efficient, and true to the racing spirit that the Connaught name carried. The technical details of the Type D are impressive for a prototype. Its engine, built with a narrow 22.5 degrees angle, allowed for an innovative design that reduced size and weight while maintaining balance and performance. The use of a supercharger and the option to add an electric motor to assist with acceleration made the engine advanced for its time. The Berkeley T60 made its debut in September 1959. After World War II, Britain faced many economic challenges. People needed affordable transportation that did not cost too much to buy or run. Car makers tried to produce vehicles that were simple and efficient. In this climate, Berkeley Cars Limited had already built sports cars like the SA322, the SE328, and the SE492. These models used small engines and were built with fiberglass bodies. The fiberglass work came from Berkeley Coachwork, a company owned by Charles Panter that was known for building caravans. Panter teamed up with Laurie Bond, who had a background in designing small cars. Bond had worked on the Bond minicar and the Bond minibike. Their combined experience in making lightweight vehicles helped them create a car that met the needs of the time. At a time when vehicles with 3 wheels did not require a full car license and had lower road tax and insurance costs, the Berkeley T60 fit perfectly into the market. The car cost about £400 when it was released. This low cost made it very popular among people who needed a simple car for daily use. The T60 was built using a fiberglass monocoque body, which meant that the body and the frame were one piece. This construction method made the car very light. Early models of the T60 weighed about 680 pounds, while later ones reached around 725 pounds because of changes in materials. This light weight helped the car achieve a top speed of around 60 to 65 miles per hour. Under the hood, the T60 carried a 328 cubic inch engine called the Excelsior Talisman. This engine was a 2-stroke parallel twin design that produced about 18 horsepower. Despite the small size of the engine, the car was quick enough to handle the busy streets of Britain. The engine was mated to a 4-speed manual gearbox with reverse. This gearbox, known as the VR gearbox, was a robust design that helped drivers manage the power of the small engine. Power was sent to the front wheels, which was a choice that set the T60 apart from many other cars at the time that used rear-wheel drive. The suspension system of the Berkeley T60 was simple but effective. The front suspension was independent, which helped the car handle well on the rough roads of post-war Britain. In order to fit a single rear wheel, the design of the rear suspension was changed from the earlier four-wheeled models. Instead of using a swing axle, the T60 used a trailing arm system. This system was important because it maintained stability on the road and reduced the risk of damage to the car's structure. The brakes were hydraulic drum brakes on both the front and rear wheels, giving the car the stopping power needed despite its small size. One interesting aspect of the T60 was how it used a unique three-wheeled layout. With two wheels at the front and one at the rear, the T60 was able to meet legal requirements that allowed it to be driven on a motorcycle license. This three-wheel design also meant that the vehicle had lower production costs and lower running costs. As drivers needed a car that was cheap to run, the T60 was able to provide an affordable solution. The simplicity of the design also meant that repairs were easier and parts were less expensive. Berkeley Cars Limited numbered each T60 produced. The chassis numbers for the standard T60 started at 1 and went up to roughly 1,800. In the early production run, the T60 featured a bench seat with a pull handbrake. Later on, changes were made to replace the bench seat with bucket seats and a floor-mounted handbrake. The change in the seating arrangement and the move from aluminum to steel reinforcement in the body were part of a series of modifications made during the production of the T60. These modifications were practical steps taken to improve safety and reduce costs as the company faced economic pressures. Not long after the standard T60 was released, a new variant was introduced in October 1960. This version was known as the T64. The T64 was different in that it offered extra seating. The body of the car was modified to provide room for two children in the back. The design of the rear of the car was changed to create a fixed bench seat, and a noticeable bulge in the center backrest accommodated the extra seating. The T64 had its own chassis numbering system that began with a prefix indicating it was a T64. Only about 50 of these cars were produced, making them much rarer than the standard two-seater T60. The changes between the standard T60 and the T64 were subtle but important. Both models used the same 328 cubic inch Excelsior engine and the same 4-speed gearbox. However, the interior fittings of the T64 were adjusted to make the car more suitable for family use. While the standard T60 was designed for 2 people, the T64 could carry 4 people in total. The T64 still shared the overall design of the original, including the lightweight fiberglass body and the 3-wheeled layout. Despite these changes, the T64 kept the basic performance of its predecessor, with a top speed still around 60 miles per hour. The design of the Berkeley T60 was a product of its time. The use of fiberglass and the compact design were responses to economic conditions after World War II. In a period when many people needed simple and affordable vehicles, Berkeley Cars Limited used its skills in lightweight construction and small engine design to offer a car that met real needs. The T60 was a blend of practicality and simplicity. It did not have many of the extra features that more expensive cars had, but it provided reliable transportation. Its design was straightforward, with a focus on keeping production costs low while still offering a fun driving experience. Behind the T60, there were 2 important men, Charles Panter and Laurie Bond. Charles Panter was in charge of Berkeley Coachwork, which was known for making fiberglass caravans. The company had a reputation in Europe as one of the largest caravan makers. Laurie Bond had a strong background in car design. He had worked on the Bond minicar and the Bond minibike. Their combined expertise in using fiberglass for car bodies and in creating efficient, lightweight vehicles was key to the design of the T60. Their work showed that it was possible to build a car that was both affordable and enjoyable to drive. The story of the Berkeley T60 is also about the challenges faced by small car makers in post-war Britain. Although the T60 sold nearly 1,800 units, Berkeley Cars Limited did not last long. The company went into insolvency in December 1960. One reason for the company's financial problems was the collapse of the caravan market. Berkeley Coachwork had relied on caravan sales to balance the seasonal ups and downs of car production. When caravans lost popularity, the company did not have enough funds to keep car production going. The financial pressures and market changes eventually forced Berkeley to close its doors, leaving behind a small but memorable legacy. Even after Berkeley Cars Limited closed, the T60 continued to be remembered by collectors and enthusiasts. Many of the T60 that were sold ended up in private collections and museums. The Lane Motor Museum and other classic car institutions have displayed examples of the T60. Over time, owners have worked to restore the cars using original parts or parts made from the original molds. Some have even fitted the cars with different engines, such as those from Mini or Citroën, to improve reliability while keeping the unique look and feel of the original T60. These restoration efforts have kept the spirit of the T60 alive, and many automotive fans today study the car as an example of British engineering in a challenging time. In the years after the closure of Berkeley Cars Limited, many efforts were made to preserve the story of the company and its cars. In the 1980s, a new company was set up in Siston, Leicestershire to restore Berkeley vehicles. By the early 1990s, this company was using the original molds to produce new body panels. In 1993, complete Berkeley T60 cars were being made on a new ladder-type chassis. These efforts to keep the Berkeley name alive show that even decades later, there is still interest in the ideas behind the T60. In some parts of the world, such as New Zealand, similar homage vehicles were built using parts from other small cars like the Mini. These modern projects have kept the memory of Berkeley Cars Limited in the public eye, even though the original company only lasted a few years. The legacy of the Berkeley T60 also lives in the history of three-wheeled vehicles. In Britain, the rules that allowed three-wheeled cars to be driven on a motorcycle license led to a small but steady market for such vehicles. The T60 was one of the best-known examples. At the time, other companies also made three-wheeled vehicles, but few matched the low cost and simplicity of the T60. The rules that made three-wheeled cars attractive have changed over time, and today, the T60 is seen as a relic of a unique period in British motoring history. Its design and production reflect a time when practicality and affordability were the main drivers of innovation in the car industry. The story begins with a spark in Cambridge, United Kingdom in 1954, a time when a small workshop set out to build cars that would race on tracks and be driven on ordinary roads. In a dramatic twist that hints at many challenges ahead, Brian Lister and his team took humble beginnings, using a simple tubular ladder chassis, a de Dion rear axle, and a tuned MG engine. On a crisp day at Oulton Park, with racing driver Archie Scott Brown behind the wheel, the early Lister car made its debut at the British Empire Trophy. That first outing, modest yet determined, showed that even with basic parts like an MG engine and stock gearbox, there was potential. Changes were soon made. A more tuned Bristol engine replaced the MG power, and knockoff wire wheels came into play instead of the original drum brakes. These adjustments helped the car win the 2-liter class at a race supporting the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. This introduction to racing hinted at a long journey filled with innovation, loss, and reinvention. A journey that would eventually lead to one of the most unique sports cars ever built. In 1954, Brian Lister set the stage in a modest Cambridge workshop by building sports cars that used simple engineering methods. The first car had a tubular ladder frame and a de Dion rear axle. Early on, Lister used an engine from MG. When the car raced at Oulton Park with Archie Scott Brown at the wheel, it showed promise. Later, Lister changed the engine to a more tuned Bristol unit and switched to wire wheels instead of the MG's drum brakes. These changes helped the car win a race supporting the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. As 1955 arrived, a few models were built with a new body designed by a former Bristol employee. Although these models had fins and strakes, they did not show much improvement in race results. Lister then shifted to using a 6-cylinder motor from a Formula 2 Maserati A6 GCA in one of their own designs, while still offering the older Bristol engine to customers. They also tried making a single-seater car powered by a Coventry Climax engine paired with an MG gearbox, but that experiment did not perform well. In 1957, the approach changed significantly. Lister redesigned a car to use a 3.4-liter Jaguar D-Type XK inline-six engine in an aerodynamic aluminium body. Racing journalist John Bolster recorded that this car went from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 11.2 seconds. That same year, Archie Scott Brown drove the new Lister Jaguar in the British Empire Trophy and secured a win. The following year, in 1958, further refinements were made to the Lister Jaguar, and the car began competing internationally. However, tragedy struck when Archie Scott Brown lost his life in a crash at Spa-Francorchamps while driving a Lister Jaguar. Cars from these years earned the nickname Lister Nobly because of the curved design in their bodywork. In 1959, Lister hired aerodynamicist Frank Costin. He designed a new body built around a Chevrolet Corvette engine. The new model had a front engine layout. This design did not keep pace with the shift to rear-engine sports cars that became popular with cars like the Cooper. By the end of 1959, Lister stopped producing race cars for major events, though they continued making sports cars for private buyers. In 1963, the company was chosen by the Roots Group to work on the Sunbeam Tiger for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Lister improved the Tiger by upgrading its suspension and brakes and adding a fastback hardtop with a sloping windscreen. The Tiger's Ford V8 was tuned by Carroll Shelby to produce more power. The car was built to hit around 170 miles per hour, but engine failures and other problems led Roots to refund the engines. This project did not go as planned, and Lister's tuning works suffered as a result. After years of quieter operations, the Lister name returned in 1986 when Lister Cars Limited was formed in Leatherhead, Surrey. Under the watchful eye of engineer Lawrence Pierce, the new company tuned nearly 90 Jaguar XJS models. These tuned Jaguars could reach speeds well over 150 miles per hour and cost more than 100,000 pounds. This work paved the way for a new sports car. In 1993, Lister introduced the Lister Storm, a car meant for both road driving and racing, built with the lessons learned over the decades. The Lister Storm road car was a bold move in 1993. It was designed as a grand tourer that could handle both everyday roads and the intense demands of racing. Only 4 road cars were made, a decision driven by the high cost of development and production. At the heart of the Storm is a 7.0-liter Jaguar V12 engine, a significant engine because it is the largest V12 ever placed in a production car since World War II. This engine was based on the unit used in the Jaguar XJR9, a car known for its performance at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The engine in the Storm was modified with new bore and stroke measurements to reach 6,996 cubic centimeters. It produced roughly 585 to 594 horsepower. The engine also produced around 580 pound-feet of torque. These numbers gave the Storm strong performance. The car could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 4.1 seconds and was claimed to reach a top speed of around 208 miles per hour. The power of the engine, combined with the car's design, set a new standard for 4-seat Grand Tourers. The Storm's construction featured a carbon fiber body over a carbon fiber chassis. Using carbon fiber helped reduce weight and improve strength. The Storm weighs around 3,670 pounds. The body design was partly inspired by the Volkswagen Corrado, as elements like the doors and greenhouse were borrowed from that model. The design also focused on reducing air resistance. Every detail, from the shape of the front end to the underbody, was carefully planned to lower drag. Inside, the Storm was built to seat 4 passengers comfortably. Despite its high performance, it was also practical for long drives. The luggage space was large enough for everyday needs. Every dimension of the car was measured for both performance and comfort. The car is about 179 inches long, 78 inches wide, and 52 inches tall, with a wheelbase of approximately 102 inches. The careful design ensured stability at high speeds and offered enough interior space. The transmission in the Storm is a 6-speed manual gearbox made by Getrag. This gearbox allowed drivers to manage the high power from the V12 engine effectively. The Storm combined advanced materials and powerful engineering to create a car that was unique at the time. It was built during a period when many manufacturers were experimenting with new construction methods and power plants. Although the Storm's design was not conventional compared to its rivals, it became known for its rare production and solid performance. The car was produced during a time when few manufacturers offered such high performance in a four-seat package. Its high price, around £220,000 when new, meant that it was a rare sight on the roads. Today, the Storm is considered a collector's item, and its history is carefully documented by automotive enthusiasts and historians. Every detail in the car's design has been recorded, from the carbon fiber construction to the modified Jaguar V12 engine, making it one of the most studied sports cars in history. While the road car set records, Lister did not stop there. The company took the Storm into the world of racing. The first racing version, known as the Storm GTS, made its debut at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1995. In that race, the Storm GTS competed in the GT1 class alongside cars such as the McLaren F1 GTR, the Ferrari F40 LM, and the Porsche 911 GT2. Unfortunately, the Storm GTS faced a setback when a gearbox failure ended its race after only 40 laps. This incident provided valuable lessons that would shape future developments. In 1996, Lister signed a sponsorship deal with Newcastle United and hired engineer Jeff Kingston to improve the racing car. Changes were made to the bodywork and brakes, and the engine was moved back by 5 inches to improve weight distribution. A new 6-speed sequential gearbox replaced the older 5-gear speed unit, with the gearbox relocated to the rear. In the 1996 24 Hours of Daytona, the Storm GTS was driven by Jeff Lees, Tiff Needell, and Kenny Atchison. During that race, the car was involved in a high-speed crash that resulted in severe damage. Kenny Atchison suffered injuries including temporary vision loss, a broken rib, and a decrease in lung capacity. After the crash, a new car was built by G-Force for later races. That same year, the rebuilt Storm GTS was entered in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. With drivers such as Anthony Reid joining Lees and Needle, the car managed to finish the race, though it was many laps behind the leaders. Later in 1996, the Storm GTS was raced in the BPR Global GT Series at the Nürburgring. In that event, the car was running in third place before retiring. At Brands Hatch, another race in the BPR Series saw the Storm GTS qualify strongly but then retire after encountering engine issues while still in third. Following these events, Lister developed a revised version called the Storm GTL in 1997. This version featured a longer, more aerodynamic front end and continued to use a carbon fiber structure. The Storm GTL made its debut at Daytona, where it finished 19th overall and 4th in its class. Later that year, 2 Storm GTLs were entered in Le Mans, though both did not finish the race. The GTL variant was also raced in the United States at Sebring and Laguna Seca as part of the FIA GT Championship, but both entries ended without finishing the race. In the 1997 British GT Championship, the Storm GTL managed to secure a win and a second-place finish at Donington Park, marking its first notable success in a national series. By 1999, Lister introduced the Storm GT, a version that looked less aggressive in its bodywork compared to the GTL. The Storm GT was entered in the FIA GT Championship under the GT2 class rules. Early in the season, the car had setbacks at races like Monza and Silverstone, where it did not finish despite showing promise. In a race at Hockenheim, the Storm GT finished only 2 laps behind the winners, who were driving Chrysler Viper GTSRs. Later in 1999, the Storm GT recorded a pole position and a third-place finish at Zolder, followed by a second-place finish at Donington Park. In the British GT Championship that year, drivers such as David Warnock, Tiff Needell, Jamie Campbell-Walter, and Julian Bailey drove the Storm GT. Their combined efforts led to wins in both the GT2 category and overall race victories. In the 2000 FIA GT Championship, one Storm GT chassis, known as GTM 002, saw a series of impressive performances. In 2003, Lister Cars tried something different with the Storm LMP, a Le Mans prototype. Designed by Andy Thorby, the Storm LMP was an open-topped car intended for endurance racing. Although it was originally planned to use a Judd V10 engine, the final build used a Chevrolet V8 engine instead. The Storm LMP employed a Hewland TLS 6-speed sequential gearbox with a Megaline paddle shift system. The car was entered in races such as the 24 Hours of Le Mans test days and later in the Vallelunga 6 Hours. After suffering a heavy crash and other technical issues, the Storm LMP managed to finish some races with mixed results. In mid-2005, the Storm LMP was converted into a hybrid and entered in a wet Silverstone round of the Le Mans Endurance Series, where it finished 18th. In another race at Vallelunga, the hybrid version was classified second despite a suspension failure late in the event. The racing efforts with the Storm variants were a learning experience for Lister cars. Each version, whether the Storm GTS, GTL, GT, or LMP, went through adjustments to improve performance. Changes were made to the engine placement, body shape, suspension settings, and gearboxes. The drivers, including names like Jeff Lees, Tiff Needell, Kenny Atchison, Jamie Campbell-Walter, and Julian Bailey, provided valuable feedback from the track. Their input helped fine-tune the cars for better performance in challenging races. The evolution of these cars over the years is documented in various motorsport records and automotive databases. The technical records of the Lister Storm are just as important as its racing history. The Storm road car holds a record for having the largest V12 engine installed in a production car since World War II. The 7.0-liter Jaguar V12 engine, originally found in the Jaguar XJR9, was modified for the Storm. With a displacement of 6,996 cubic centimeters, the engine was reworked to produce about 554 PS and around 580 lb-ft of torque. This engine is a major highlight when discussing performance, as few cars have matched its size and power in a road car format. The performance statistics are recorded in many automotive resources. The Storm can accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.1 seconds. Its top speed is reported to be around 208 miles per hour, numbers that were remarkable for a 4-seat car in the early 1990s. The 6-speed Getrag manual gearbox was designed to handle the immense power generated by the modified Jaguar V12 engine. These performance figures have been verified by automotive publications and racing records. Every detail, from the early days in Cambridge with Brian Lister's first experiments, to the powerful races driven by names like Archie Scott Brown, Jeff Lees, Tiff Needell, Jamie Campbell-Walter, Julian Bailey, and Andy Thorby, is carefully documented. The evolution of design and performance, the careful measurements in inches, the power in horsepower and lb-ft of torque, and the race records that are part of motorsport history, all contribute to a complete picture of the Lister Storm's place in automotive history.